Hi everyone, this is Sophie Ash from Prospology and I'm here with Jeffrey Tobin. Hi Jeffrey.
And I'm here with you, all of you at home, enjoying this little telecast.
That's lovely. So Jeffrey and I like to talk about our personal and professional experiences and share some of our insights and things that we know and things that we don't know, and just enjoy each other's company, having a discussion around something. We both learn a lot. We like to share what we know. And this week's topic is about journaling. It's a very broad topic, I feel. Now, I don't know if you do journaling or if you know much about journaling, but...
Yeah, I have experience with it. It's very difficult for me to do. I know the benefits. And so, I'm happy to talk about the benefits, and I'm also happy to talk about what it's like not journaling.
Okay. Let's start with the benefits, maybe.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll share personally what I find beneficial about it and how I do it, and then we'll see how that compares with what you hear from your clients and your experience. So I actually have one of my journals with me right now. It's so full. I only started this at the beginning of March, so 3 months, and it's almost full.
Wow.
I mean, it's a mixture of notes about projects I'm working on, strategy for my businesses, but honestly, most of it is just me expressing whatever's going on at the time. When I first kind of heard about journaling, it was kind of like meditation for me. People would be like, have you tried meditation? And I'd be like, that's what, I don't know. I had all these misconceptions and stereotypes in my mind about the people who did journaling. And I was like, that's not for me. And there's always people who kind of preach about specific journaling techniques that really work for them. And there's types of journals you can buy. Like one of the ones I bought was the 5-minute journal. And I think, I can't remember exactly what it had, but I think each day had a row. It was I think it had an entire week on a page. And you had to write like something you were grateful for that day, or something you accomplished, or something you wish had gone better, or something. I can't remember what it was, but I did it for a day and I was like, nope, this doesn't work for me.
What was it, just too much? Did it take too much? I mean, 5 minutes doesn't sound like a lot of time. So what was the challenge?
No, it was just that whenever I'm given a predetermined structure and a set of questions that I have to answer, they're just not resonating with me and what I need at that time. So what I've found is just, what I usually do is I ask myself, what's going on, as if I was another person. And I just start to write whatever I'm thinking or whatever's happening. And then as things come out on paper, I start to realize what I actually need, or what is the actual challenge that I'm facing, or what I might do about it. So, I know a lot of people do gratitude journaling, and every day they write like 5 things they're grateful for or whatever. Yeah. Sometimes when I'm writing just openly, it kind of tells me, why don't you write a list of things you're grateful for? Because that's what I need at the time. I'm kind of like getting all caught up in the future things I haven't done yet, and I think this would help me stay grounded and not be so overwhelmed. But other times, gratitude does not help me at all. It's not what I need. I need to cry, or I need to take a break, or I need to just tell someone something that's bothering me. So I find that journaling for me is more of an open-ended, whatever it is kind of approach. And I don't like to have the structure, but I think other people may like having prompts and things to kind of encourage them to share certain things because they don't really know how to do it.
Well, there's one shortcut I should suggest to you, and that is when you're writing things that you're grateful for, you don't have to write my whole name out every time. You could just put an asterisk and, put that at the back of your journal.
Great tip. That applies to everyone out there who wants to write Jeffrey on.
Yeah, but mine has more star things on it, so it's unique.
Oh, okay. It's a competition now. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things we probably should talk about is what is the benefit? I mean, why do people journal in the first place? And there are many, many reasons that people journal. Some people I know that I've spent a lot of time with just have an open tablet and they just write until they feel like they're done writing for the day. They just write down their thoughts, things that went well, things that didn't go well. A lot of it just doesn't matter. It's kind of a brain dump, and it allows them to get things out of their head and onto paper. And there's something about that. Well, there are many things about that. One of them with journaling is just doing a brain dump. And now that the stuff that's going on in your head is on paper, and it's not just going to float around like gnats and then disappear into the ether someday. You can recall it, and you could go back to it. So that's one interesting way to do it. I kind of like that idea because it's not structured. It's just, you're right. Some people will write pages. Some people will just write a few paragraphs. But also you can go back and look at that historically and see progress, which I really like. Things that have been on your mind, challenges that you've been through. And as you said, when things aren't going well, to recall that, but then you can kind of look back at that and go, that was a terrible time, but I got through that, and I will get through the next thing too. There are a lot of things that you forget. I think from a self-knowledge standpoint, it's really helpful to kind of de-stress.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sorry, do you want to continue?
No, go ahead. I'll come back.
Oh, I was just going to say, I very rarely look back at my old entries. I'm just even thinking what is in the beginning here. So,
do you want to read aloud?
It was around maybe. We don't have that much time. So I was talking in March about how my relationship had massively shifted with a particular person, and how I felt about that, and just giving myself a new perspective on it, just being there for myself, basically supporting myself with it. And I mean, that's still an ongoing thing now that I'm struggling with. So I don't know that it necessarily helps me to look back. Although I do sometimes look at things like the first page that I have is just like what my goals were at the beginning of March. So every once in a while, I'm like, oh, it's 3 months later. I wonder if my goals have changed or if I've achieved them. Yeah. And I cross them all off, and I'm like, wow, I did almost all of them in such a short time. Yeah, because they're pretty big things. And the ones that I didn't do was because they weren't a priority anymore, because things changed. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I mean, I often wonder, is there a benefit to looking back? Because I don't keep any of my old journals. I throw them away. I tend to think that it's helpful to keep relearning things in new situations. Even if you've been through something and there's something that was useful to you at that time, you still have it somewhere in your head. And if there's a new situation to apply it to, or a new perspective, or you're rewriting it, it's kind of solidifying it again. So I always find it better to think, oh, what are my goals right now? And literally write them from scratch, from memory. Because it's like the ones that aren't as important, they get forgotten. The ones that are still very much things I want to do will still come back. So that's been my perspective on it, but I'm not sure that everybody would relate to that.
Well, one thing we do know is that when I see we, I mean me, is that when we write things down, it sticks in our head better. And that's a really important, I think it's really helpful for memory, of course, for problem solving and so many other things. There's something about that link that psychologists will tell you that is really helpful that way. As far as looking backward or back, I got my wife, Laura, what's called a 10-year journal, which seems like a long time, but it's really only a decade. But every page has, for let's say April the 28th or October 17th, it has 10 years on it, and it only allows you 2 or 3 sentences. Yeah. But what's really cool about that is that she has got, I keep thinking it's this like memory steel trap, but no, her secret is every day she goes to fill in that new date, she can review what happened 10 years ago, 9 years ago, 8 years ago. So she remembers everything, which is great as long as she's alive. I don't have to know anything because she knows it all. But so there's that kind of journaling. I know probably Laura and I don't argue, but if we ever did, and I think we did for a while, about one really weird thing. And that was this: we would put our heads down on the pillow and I would say, Laura, what are you thinking about? And she would say, nothing, and I'd go, nah, come on. I mean, you're thinking about something. There's got to be something. Nope, it's just blank. And we'd get into this thing. I'd say, Laura, come on. I mean, you're thinking about a tree or a dog. It doesn't matter. It's got to be something in your head. Nope, just going to sleep. I'm like, nah, can you think about me getting really mad? But it turned out that I finally discovered what is happening in her head because for me, I found it through meditation. Just happened to be a cigar. I don't recommend people doing that, but for me, when I have a cigar, I sit down, especially outside, and relax, which I don't do all the time, but it helps me just to relax. And it's not the nicotine. It's even before I light up. It's just relaxing. But what I found out was that in my head, things are like fireworks all the time. And I've spoken to other people that have the same kind of thing. It's like the fireworks are happening 24/7 and there's just no quieting them. And that's why part of the reason it's hard for me to sit and read. It's another reason it's hard for me to journal because I each sentence I write wants to go off into 4 other sentences. And it's really hard for me to do that. But at least those are two people, what kind of ends of the spectrum. And maybe most people fall somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. I've had that same situation where I've been like, what are you thinking about? Nothing. And I'm like, what? How can that be? Because I'm like you, I have so many thoughts and ideas and feelings all the time. Yep. And I always have a list in the back of my mind of things I want to do and the urgency of that and what that all means in the bigger picture. And so, yeah, journaling helps me to just put it on paper and see either it's a lot and I can't tackle it all at once, so I should probably spread it out, or it's not as scary as I thought it was. Or at least I have some idea as to what it all means because I've been forced to acknowledge what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling, and writing it down makes you actually process it as opposed to just like ignoring it and having it bouncing around in there. So I definitely
find it fascinating that I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I find it fascinating that you throw away, because to me, that just seems like such a personal thing. I'd find it hard to throw away. I'd want them to just automatically turn into smoke when I pass on so nobody else can read them, But at least for our viewers, it might be helpful to look at least a couple of ways to do this. And one way is just when you put your head down at night, get a piece of paper and write down the things that are on your mind. Something that's been going on in your head, even if it's not something that you've necessarily solved, but something that's about work or a relationship. Doesn't have to say you've solved it or it's good or bad, just to write it down. And then there's something calming about kind of letting this stuff come out of your head that helps you clear your mind and de-stress. Another way to do it is in the morning when you first get up, and just take a few minutes to write a few sentences about what's in your head. What are you thinking about for the day? Challenges you have, dangers, opportunities, those kinds of things. And that's another way to do some journaling. It doesn't take very long, but I think probably the most important thing with journaling, a lot of people would agree, is getting started and just, say, look, I'm just going to promise myself I'm going to do this for a week, just a week. It's just getting started with it. Don't have I'll do this for 28 days or I'm going to do this for 6 months. Just do it for a week and see how it feels, one day at a time. And then if that works, say, okay, I'll do this for 2 weeks. And before you know it, it can become a habit, and a good one too.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I used to have a lot of enforcements in place that just made it harder for me to do it. Like I would separate my work book from my non-work stuff, and that didn't work because, everything's related. And then I would be like, I'm only going to do it in the morning when I first wake up. And then sometimes it wouldn't happen and I would just fall off and feel bad about not doing it. And sometimes I do it before bed. But like now it's become a habit. So I guess I'm more flexible. Like I just sometimes I wake up and I'm in a really bad headspace, or I've had a weird dream and I feel like, you know, today's the day I should just do some journaling now, which is what I did this morning. And other days, you know, I go through the whole day and then it gets to the end of the day and I'm like, oh, there's so much in my mind. I want to write things down before I go to sleep. Other days, like Tuesday, I am so overwhelmed like halfway through the day from everything I've been trying to do. So I just go to the park and I take my journal and I just tell myself I'm going to write until I just don't need to write anymore. And I don't know what it's going to be.
Idea.
And it feels great. It really helps me reset everything, remind me of what's important, and that, you know, life's not such a big rush and that I don't have to have it all figured out, and no one reads it, no one cares what it says. You know, there's no such thing as a stupid thing to say to yourself in your own journal. But yeah, just taking the pressure off to always do it in a certain way at a certain time.
I found that, and just kind of in closing here for me, that because I don't like journaling all that much, the best thing for me is I've delegated it to other people to write down things that I'm thinking about. So I just say, just write down what I'm thinking. I don't just write it down. And it costs me a little bit of money, but I don't have to worry about it. And I don't recall what they said, but whatever. Interesting.
Well, one final point I would like to make is that journaling doesn't have to be written. I've actually been doing a lot of video journaling, and I think what we're doing right now is a form of that. We're talking about our experiences, you know, what we're going through at the time. That's a form of journaling. And audio as well. I often leave voice notes to myself and I just talk about whatever's going on and I listen back to them. And just that process of talking and saying it out loud is really helpful for me to just put all the pieces together in my brain.
Great way to do it. That's very healthy. That's super cool.
Yeah, and I think photography as well is another one, because I do have like flashbacks of, you know, 5 years ago today, you were here. And that's a thing that Facebook does. That's a thing that a lot of inbuilt photo software does as well. So I feel like I get my flashbacks from photos where I'm documenting what's happening, and then the feelings and thoughts I had at the time are attached to the images. The other thing I do is I have a journal that other people fill in when they come and visit me. So there's been a big gap because of COVID, but whenever I host an event or I have someone over, I ask them to write a few notes in the journal.
We do the same thing. We have our guests. Is that what you're saying? Your guests?
Yeah, it's like a guest book.
Yeah, we do the same thing. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing? And I often look back and read those. And those, honestly, I think that's my equivalent of reading my old journals, because when I hear the other people's perspectives on what I was doing at that time, it blows my mind. It resonates with me so well. I was looking through it just a couple of days ago and somebody said, and it was 2 years ago now, less than 2 years ago, and they were like, don't worry, you'll figure out what you want to do soon. You'll find something that you love. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know everything I'm doing right now wasn't even in existence then, because it was just before I came up with the idea of Prospology, and before I discovered medical writing, and before I got into advertising. And it blew my mind, because I remember that day, and I remember suddenly I had all these memories of like, oh my God, I was so unhappy. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was really unfulfilled. I literally quit my job because I was so unhappy, but I had no plan of what was going to happen next. So just for me, that's my version of that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being creative in the format in which you do the journaling.
I'm right with you. I agree.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll end it there. I think essentially what we're saying is that try it and see if you like it. There's different ways to do it. The more you do it, the more of a habit it's going to become. You might find it really useful to just clear your thoughts, get things out of your head and onto paper. Maybe it does help you to look back in the years to come. Maybe it doesn't, but experiment with it and see if it does. And let us know. Tell us your stories, your experiences. We'd love to hear.
I'm going to write about this experience right now.
Amazing.
See ya.
In a year's time, we'll have this video to look back on. We'll be like,
Okay.
oh, we do nothing back then.
Way back when I did not have hair. Oh, I still don't have hair. That's pretty amazing. And I feel good about that.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Gabri. Until next
Thank you.
time.
See you, Sophie.